You know, this is like the 10th time that I'm filming this. It's honestly embarrassing at this point. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for your patience, and I'm really sorry that I haven't been posting anything lately. My schedule hasn't been permitting any filming time, but I'm really happy that I was able to find time to film something for you guys. So I want to make up for lost time. I've decided to share with you all the things that I read from March to April. I had pretty great reading months considering how busy my schedule has been. But yeah, March and April were really great reading months for me. Specifically March, because I fell into the Grishaverse in March. I'm still in the Grishaverse, so I am currently reading the 6th book in the Grishaverse novels. I am currently reading King of Scars, but yes, I got into the Grishaverse around March. This was partially because of, in preparation for the Shadow and Bone Netflix show, which premiered last week. Guys, please watch the show if you haven't already, or rewatch it if you have. Let's get it a second season. There is so much to further explore and so much to see with regards to this world, and I'm so excited for the second season, so I'm really hoping that it gets picked up. Also, the other reason why I got into the Grishaverse in March was because of my friend Fifi. So she's also here on YouTube. I'll leave her links down below. But Fifi, if you're watching this, I love you so much. You know how much you mean to me and how much I owe you my life at this point, because the first set of books that I read in March were the Six of Crows books. So Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom. And funnily enough, I've actually had them for quite a while now. I've had them since July of 2020. But I never got around to reading them because I have this really bad problem wherein I buy a lot of books, but I have yet to read the books that I previously bought. Please tell me there's someone that also has that problem. And I got these books because they were recommended by Carrie and Cindy, who you guys already know are some of my favorite booktubers. I'll leave their links down below as well. But yeah, they love these books so much. They always recommend these books, and I was pretty curious, so I got copies for myself back in July. But it wasn't until Fifi's Goodreads review on Six of Crows. And when you read a review and it just ticks all the boxes for you in terms of what you want and what you're looking for, that's how I felt with Fifi's review. So Fifi, thank you so much. I really owe you my life, because Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom are actually two of my favorite books of all time. I am already claiming it. They are two of my favorite books, and I'm so excited to share my thoughts with you all. I kind of want to film, individual videos surrounding the different Grishaverse series. So the Grishaverse, if you guys don't know, is a fictional world created by Leigh Bardugo, and there are 3 separate series within the Grishaverse, but they're all quite linked together. We've got the Grisha trilogy, the Six of Crows duology, and the Nikolai duology. I'm currently reading the Nikolai duology right now, so I'll finish that up first. By the way, some people are a bit confused with how the Netflix show is compared to the Grishaverse books. The events that take place in the Six of Crows books actually take place 2 years after the events in the Grisha trilogy. So in canon, or in the books, the characters don't meet, but what the Netflix show did was merge the stories together. So the first season of Shadow and Bone actually covers the first book in the series, which is Shadow and Bone, and the first season also serves as a prequel to the first Six of Crows books. So the Six of Crows characters that we meet in the show are prequel versions of the people that we meet in the books. So I'm so excited, which is why I'm really gunning for a second season, because there's just so much to explore, especially with the crows. If you already love them in the show, you're gonna love them even more in the books. So yeah, fingers crossed we get to the Six of Crows timeline. But okay, moving on to my discussion of my March reads. So Six of Crows was my first dip into the Grishaverse, and I'm gonna admit I was pretty lost in the first few chapters. I had no idea what a Grisha was. I didn't know the different orders of Grisha, but a couple of chapters in, I was able to understand, a bit of the world, and Leigh did such a great job at building the world of Ketterdam, which is where the book is set. And the main focus of Six of Crows, well, for me, the reason why I love the book so much are the characters. It was actually after reading Six of Crows and Cricket Kingdom that I realized how much I love character-driven stories. Don't get me wrong, I love a good plot, I love a good conflict. Like, the plots of both books are equally amazing and so like mind-blowing, but it really was the 6 characters that brought it home for me. Each character is so well written, they are all so unique, and they just add so much, you know, flavor to the story. I really love reading about characters and knowing what makes them tick. I love getting to know what makes up the entirety of their being and knowing what motivates them and drives them, and that's really the core of the Six of Crows books for me. But aside from that, I had a really great time reading these books. Honestly, like, if you follow me on Instagram or if you know me personally, you would know how much I gush over these books. Like, people have been wondering, like, what are you talking about? Like, what books are these? And I'm just like, you gotta read it. I just can't explain. I can't put into words. Like, this is me attempting to explain to you guys how much I love these books. For Six of Crows specifically, the first book, the plot was just mind-blowing. Like, honestly, I really gotta hand it to my boy, Kaz Brecker. He is just, his mind, honestly. Like, I am still blown away by how well he plans out heists and how he's always like 5 steps ahead of you and knows your next move even before you've thought about it. Yeah, I just love him so much. He's actually my favorite character of all time. I just think he's so layered, so complex. Like, don't get me wrong, I love like all 6 equally, but like Kaz is just like nanometers, like, if that even exists, like on top. Also, both books, like, I've never had a book elicit multiple physical reactions, like, ever. Like, granted, like, I always cry when I read books, or I am easily moved by books, but I don't know, like, the reactions that were elicited from me while reading these books were quite intense. Specifically at the end of Six of Crows, there is this reveal, and I was so shocked that I dropped my book on my bed, got out of my bed, and started jumping around my room because of how shocked I was and how blown away I was by that whole plot twist. And then Cricket Kingdom, of course, if you've read Cricket Kingdom, there is this one chapter, this specific chapter, chapter 40. I'm just gonna say, your girl went through it. I remember, like, I was texting Fifi because, like, throughout this whole reading experience, I was documenting like all my feelings. Like, Fifi, the reason why I read Six of Crows, was also the recipient of all my like intense feelings. So I was just messaging her all the time, sending photos of me crying and videos of my reactions, and it was just, what a time. Like, when we got to that chapter in Cricket Kingdom, like, I kind of had a feeling like I knew where it was going, but nothing prepared me. Because the thing with Cricket Kingdom is that the events that take place in this book immediately follow the events that take place in Six of Crows. So, you know, I was pretty stressed out. Like, I could only imagine how stressful it would be if I didn't have Cricket Kingdom to immediately read after finishing Six of Crows, because it ends on a cliffhanger. So, warning, if you plan on reading Six of Crows, have Cricket Kingdom on hand because you're gonna be stressed. Like, it ends on a really like good cliffhanger, so have your Cricket Kingdom book ready. And the plot was also great. Like, I love the auction and just how every single character was involved in making it happen and making it come to life. And there's also a specific character, one of the characters in the Six of Crows, that finally gets chapters. So we finally get an insight into that character's mind and his backstory, and I really appreciated it because he wasn't getting that much attention in the first book. Granted, he's like a really key piece in the plot, but we never got chapters and we never got to see like the inner workings of his mind. So to see his chapters in Cricket Kingdom really meant a lot to me, and I really enjoyed reading them. So after reading Cricket Kingdom, I think I went into a state of shock. Just because so much happened and the romantic dynamics were just like mwah, chef's kiss, and all the friendship dynamics that we got towards the end of Cricket Kingdom were all just amazing. But I was in a state of shock, and it wasn't until 2 days after that it finally hit me, and it was 8 a.m. I was in my bed, I just woke up, and I watched this video on Cricket Kingdom, and I reread some of my favorite lines, and I'm just gonna post like the videos and photos that I took. I was hysterical. I was hysterically crying in bed at 8 a.m. I was just really going through the feelings. And yeah, no book has ever impacted me this way. I feel like that's why I put it at such a high regard, because of how it emotionally moved me and how each character carved its way into my heart, and how we have the different dynamics that were formed, both romantic and platonic, really impacted my life. Like, I cannot even begin to explain how many Kanej breakdowns I've had since reading these books. And the fact that it's so well represented in the show, like Freddy and Amita, they both have done such an amazing job at bringing Kanej to life. Just like, you know, I'm just gonna be breaking down for the rest of my life. So yeah, that's my whole experience on Crooked Kingdom and Six of Crows. It has something for everyone. If you like heist stories, books packed with action, if you like the found family trope, this book is definitely for you. I swear, this is like the best representation of found family for me. Like, all these characters are so different, yet they work, and it just, I love them so much, honestly. Like, I would do anything for these crows, my crow babies. So yes, go ahead and pick up the Six of Crows duology by Leigh Bardugo. You will not be disappointed. Okay, so moving on from the Six of Crows duology, after reading that, I wanted more from the world. Honestly speaking, I was only planning to read the Six of Crows duology because it is objectively better than the Grisha trilogy. Like, everyone knows that. But in preparation, of course, for the Netflix show, I wanted to familiarize myself with the source material, and I really just was craving more of the Grishaverse. So I went ahead and immediately picked up the Shadow and Bone trilogy. So here we go, here we have it. I picked up the 3 books from the Grisha trilogy, and I sped through them. So I unintentionally buddy read this with Fifi, who is the same girl who got me into the Six of Crows duology, and we had so many emotions. I feel like the Grisha trilogy holds such a special place in my heart because of that entire reading experience. Like, if it weren't for Fifi and I's commentary while reading these books, I probably wouldn't have enjoyed it as much as I did. And let's start off with Shadow and Bone, which is the first book in the Grishaverse. So it's the book that opens the entire universe. And you would think that the first book in a universe would have, you know, a lot of world building, but unfortunately, I think it was really lacking in that regard. But I'm gonna give Leigh a free pass because this was her first ever book. In terms of characters, I honestly didn't connect to anyone. I only found the Darkling like really interesting, and then Alina, I was debating on whether or not I liked her as a main character, and then Mal, I really couldn't care less about Mal. I'm really sorry. And I think it's because of the fact that the books, like all 3, were written in first person. When a story is told completely in first person, you don't get an insight into the other characters' minds. Some books do it really well, like a book that I'll talk about by the end of this video, but for Shadow and Bone, I just wasn't connecting to anyone. In terms of plot, I think that the story has so much potential. If you were to ask me though, the book honestly read as if a friend was explaining the plot of a movie to you. You know what I'm saying? I feel like there's a lot that you can get from the Grishaverse, especially the Grisha trilogy, that can make for a great show, which is what we got, thank goodness. But yeah, that was just my entire issue with the first book. Plot had potential, but it just wasn't, you know, fleshed out as much as I would have liked. Moving on to the second book, which is Siege and Storm, and in the second book we definitely see Leigh's improvement in terms of world building. We get a lot more action, we get a lot more descriptions in terms of like the universe, but honestly it was a bit slow in the beginning. I think it's because, you know, we didn't get any world building in the first book, so Leigh is really making up for it in the second one. But I will say, we did get introduced to one of my favorite characters, Nikolai. I just love him so much. He honestly reminds me of Finnick Odair from the Hunger Games, just like that wit and the banter. Honestly, like, Leigh writes banter so well. That's also the case for the Six of Crows books. The banter is just A+, and she's really good at writing really witty and quick-minded characters. Another thing that I loved about Siege and Storm was Alina's character development. We love to see it. I loved seeing her finally come into her own in this book. I loved that she was really, you know, honing her powers, and that connection with the Darkling that she had. I just can't wait to see how Jessie May Lee and Ben Barnes play that out. I think it's gonna be so juicy and just so good. I just really loved Alina in this book. I don't know, there's just something about her that really jumped off the page for me. She definitely grew a backbone in the second book, which, you know, I'm all about. But okay. Now I'm gonna move on to the things that I didn't like about Siege and Storm, mainly Mal. I'm so sorry. If you are a Mal stan in the books, please look away. Exit this video right now. What happened? Honestly, that's just still my question. What happened to Mal? What happened to his character development? Actually, lack thereof. I feel like he regressed in the second book. He just started getting really insecure now that Alina is coming to her own and she's really embracing her powers. Mal was just lashing out at Alina and just wishing that she'd, you know, go back to who she was. And that's like the whole like issue that I have, because in the first book, Alina stresses the fact that she never felt like she belonged anywhere. But now that she's a Grisha, she finally feels like she belongs somewhere, and Mal is attacking her for it. Like the entirety of the second book is just him whining and him attacking Alina and just wishing that she, you know, returned to who she was prior to figuring out that she was a Grisha. And I was like, why? Like, you claim to care about this girl. You claim to, you know, I finally see you, Alina. No, you don't. You just see her for how you want to see her. That's just like stresses me out, honestly. Like, I'm so sorry to all the Mal stans. Like, what happened to your boy? Yeah, a lot of people say that,
oh, it's because Alina was being mean and she was passing him aside.
Who spent a majority of their lives making Alina feel like she wasn't important? Mal. But yeah, I did not like Mal at all. You know, a lot of people like excuse his behavior for being a heartbroken teenager. Nah, I don't think it gives you an excuse to be a douchebag to a person who you claim to love. But I don't know. Maybe that's just me. And then, what else? Oh yeah, while we're on the topic of problematic love interests, the Darkling, also equally problematic. Honestly, at this point, I am just rooting for Alina. I've always rooted for Alina, though she was quite, you know, I wasn't really connecting with her in the first book, but I knew there was something within her. She doesn't need these men. She doesn't need these problematic men dragging her down. She can thrive on her own, and really that is the agenda that I want to push. Siege and Storm was definitely a step up compared to the first book, Shadow and Bone, but there were just some problematic, or there were just some people who were problematic in this book that didn't make me like it. But it definitely made for great commentary between Fifi and I. I was just very triggered. I didn't enjoy it, but you know, it really made for some good commentary and great discussions with Fifi. And so I finished Siege and Storm, and I remember thinking, ooh, I'm so excited to find out how Lee wraps this whole thing up. Like, how is she gonna end this trilogy? I spoke too soon, because this book stressed me out. Yeah, this book really stressed me out. I remember feeling frustrated, stressed out, and confused. I loved the first quarter, like, don't get me wrong, it was very action-packed. I loved Alina again, exercising her powers and just being like a badass. I just loved that. I love seeing Alina like that. But then it got to the middle, and I was just very confused. There is this big reveal. I won't say what, but I was so shocked. I was perplexed. I had no idea where that came from. Like, it wasn't making any sense to me. There were some like clues now that I'm looking back, like that allude to that big reveal, but I wasn't buying it. I still don't buy it. It makes no sense to me, and I can't believe like how it was revealed was just ridiculous. I couldn't believe my eyes. Like, I remember reading that, I was so shocked. I had to reread that whole section again because I just couldn't believe it. And then to make matters worse, we got to the end. I was so shocked. I couldn't believe that. Okay, I won't get into it. Like, I'll stop right now because I'm gonna spoil like a huge part of the ending. Long story short, I couldn't believe it. I did not like the ending. If it ended a different way, which I might touch on my individual video, it would have made more sense. But I actually have multiple like endings that would have made more sense than the one that we got in the book. And then to make matters even worse, it gets worse, the epilogue. Like, you know how epilogues should make you feel happy, hopeful, and content? I was stressed, frustrated, and heartbroken. That epilogue ruined me. And I remember feeling so drained that I found myself in a reading slump. Now that I'm looking at it, like I'm looking at the book right now, it's actually appropriately titled, It Ruined My Life and Rose My Blood Pressure. So, but you know, all in all, like all jokes aside, all frustrations aside, I had a great time reading it. I think it's mainly due to the fact that I buddy read it with a friend and we had like really entertaining commentary while reading the books. And you know, just in preparation for the show, I had such a great time like envisioning the actors as these characters, and just seeing it all come to life in the show was so satisfying to me as a reader and a fan of the books. But yeah, those were my reads for March. Now I'm gonna move on to my reads in April. So I only read 2 books in April because work started to get really busy last month. Like I said, I found myself in a reading slump after Ruin and Rising because I felt so drained. So I decided to turn to a trusty genre, which is romance. You guys already know I am a romance girl at heart. More specifically, a trusty trope. I mean, is anyone surprised at this point? I read an enemies to lovers book, and it is called The X-Talk by Rachel Lynn Solomon. This is actually one of my most anticipated reads of 2021. I love Rachel Lynn Solomon. She actually wrote one of my favorite reads of 2020 called Today, Tonight, Tomorrow, and I had high hopes for the X-Talk, and I'm actually really happy to share that it delivered in terms of my expectations. So the book follows Shay Goldstein, who is a producer in a local Seattle radio station, but unfortunately she's at risk of losing her job due to funding and other problems. But she finds herself booking a radio show with her arch nemesis at work. We love a good rivals, enemies to lovers trope. So the gist of the radio show is that they're both exes and they give out dating advice, or they talk about the relationship and how it ended. But the thing is, since they're rivals, they have never dated, they never had any romantic feelings for one another, so they pretend. They pretend to have been exes, and you know, it just has that enemies to lovers trope, that fake dating trope, technically, because they had to pretend that they dated, and they had to like, you know, get to know each other in an intimate way that would convince people that they did date in the past. It was just a great read all in all. The banter, of course, was amazing, and just, you know, the build up to them finally getting together. The only thing that I have against this book, well, not really against, but just an issue that I had, was the conflict. Oh, it was so stressful. But other than that, I loved the X-Talk. I had such a great time reading it, and I highly recommend this book to you if you are looking for a good enemies to lovers / fake dating trope book. So moving on to the final book that I read in April. I love this book so much, and this book has been, you know, circulating around lately, even though this book has been around for like 10 years now, I believe, and it's called The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I loved this book so much. I have nothing but great things to say about The Song of Achilles, but the main thing that I will say about The Song of Achilles is that it has very simple yet effective writing. You know how there are some books that use very flowery language or very deep vocabulary, but The Song of Achilles is just storytelling at its finest. It just uses very simple language to tell such a gripping and effective and impactful story. And a while ago I said I had some problems with stories told in the first person point of view because it feels very limiting, but that wasn't the case for The Song of Achilles. And it's just so well written. It's lyrical, poetic, and just enchanting. Some people say that The Song of Achilles is considered as Homer fanfiction, and if that's the case, then I love this fanfic. It is heartbreaking yet beautiful, and you just, have a deeper appreciation for simple writing and simple storytelling. So it follows Patroclus, who is an exiled prince, and we follow his relationship with Achilles. So we meet them as kids and we follow them all the way into their adulthood. And we all know the story of Achilles, we all know how this ends, but I'm just telling you now, nothing will prepare you for how the ending is executed. Like, I was already emotionally preparing myself. I was already conditioning my mind and my heart. But yeah, nothing prepared me. Nothing prepared me for that final line. That last line that Thetis, or Thetis, I don't know how you say her name, that last line that she says. For those who have read this book, you know what I'm talking about. Page 369, the last line. It broke me. Like, I was wailing in my room. I was crying hysterically in my room that my brother had to enter and just ask if I was okay, because I was going through it. My heart was broken, but at the same time so full. It's so beautiful that it's gonna break your heart into a million pieces and you may not recover. I'm just gonna share again all the videos and photos that I took. I actually really like to document books that make me cry. I remember there was a point while reading the Song of Achilles that I just closed the book, stared into space, and just marveled at the power of books and marveled at the power of words and the impact that it has on my life and the chokehold that it has on me. But yeah, I really love this book and I highly recommend it for anyone who is looking to cry, or just, if you're in the mood for really great storytelling. Madeline Miller is definitely the author you should check out. And I will definitely look into Circe, which is another book of hers that also centers on mythology, so I will look into that hopefully this year. I have too many books in my TBR, but I will find a way to sneak it in. But yeah, that is it for my video. I hope you guys like this one. I'm sorry if this was too long for your taste. I just wanted to film a video and make up for lost time. I hope that you guys are keeping safe and keeping well. I know that things have been pretty crazy recently, but I hope that you are safe. And yes, thank you so much for watching this video. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you guys have any book recommendations, please leave them down in the comments below. I love talking about books with you guys. If you have any video recommendations, leave them below as well. And yeah, take care, stay safe. I will see you in my next video. No mourners, no funerals. Bye!